We're on Mental Game Live on my YouTube. 5 tips to slowing down the mind under pressure. All right, number 1. Well, here we go. You're going to hear some commonalities here between what Alan says and the Buffalo Focus, which you're going to see here in a minute. Okay? And first of all, be aware of what's happening around you. I always tell people, and you heard me say this, Alan, I want my players in the big moments to be tourists, observers, not judge. They're not the judge and the jury of what's happening to them. They're the observers. They're paying attention. I had a player a long time ago tell me, try to see myself in third person. Like if you ever play video games or an NASCAR game where you're sitting behind the car instead of being in the driver's eye. That third person view can allow you to be aware of what's happening because I want you to avoid judgment. That's number 2. Stop being an ass to yourself. Stop it. Nobody cares. I find that most people, when they get really hard on themselves, I was standing 1 or 2 down, and I remember watching you. And I remember you turned to him and said, we're going to need this shot coming down 18. You exact words you said. Let's hit a low bullet. We're going to need this shot on 18. And you called it. I think what's important, I want the 3 of you guys to talk about it. You know, we hear a lot from parents who want their kids to be successful. And as soon as somebody hits a bad shot, they freak out. Like, oh my God, I can't believe, because they're trying to do so much. And what the 2 of you do with Davis, and what Davis bought into, was simplifying process. He went to things, instead of trying to be 9-ball windows and all this, it's like, this is my go-to. Like, this is what I do, right? Like, James has got a Whataburger shirt on. You don't go to Whataburger for a steak. You go there to be there, to go get a great burger. I love it. And if Whataburger wants to sponsor me, I'm in. But you know what I mean? We simplify the process, right? So talk about that process of how you do that, because that's not easy for people to do. We think we have to have all these tools in the container, but in the heat of the moment, Davis and James are talking back, and they got to simplify. Hey, welcome back to Mental Game Live. I think this is episode number, what are we at, 8 or 9, Bash? 10! Oh my God, we're 10 years of age. Okay,
Let's
how about
go.
that? 10 episodes. See, all the haters thought we would make it past 2. We made it to 10. Anyway, glad to be here. Awesome. Tuesday night, we are leading into the Regions tournament at Greystone at my home course. And tomorrow, I'm going to be playing in the Pro-Am at 2:10 p.m. Central Time, playing with some good friends, and playing with the pros, Billy Mayfair from the PJ Tour. So last year I did it with Kirk Triplett, had an absolute blast with Kirk. What an amazing guy. A lot of fun. And so I'm excited, a little nervous. I hit the ball well last year. I mean, not that it matters, but a little nervous. I haven't been hitting the ball really well this week, last week. So kind of diving in. You got any advice for me there, Bash?
I would say
Let's hear it. Let's hear Dr. Basham here for a minute.
Well, you have to have a plan first.
Okay.
You have to work your foundations on the range.
Yep, I plan on doing
You
that.
have to play some holes backwards, flip funnels.
Man.
And then don't judge.
I hope my range game transfers to the golf course. Have we heard that question before?
It's not going to happen. Two completely different environments.
2 different environments. Well, listen, those are all questions we get on a regular basis, and while we're having fun with it, it's true because it is difficult. So tonight, we're going to go through some questions. We're going to dive into your question and answer. Listen, the last 2 weeks, I've had the absolute most Q&As sent into me on Ask Me Anything on Instagram I've ever had, and that's awesome. But what I'm doing now is I'm starting to pump those questions. I'll answer about half of them, a third of them. Today, I think I answered about 15. I answered about 10% of them, actually. But we're going to be pumping them over here and answering a lot on Mental Game Live because it allows us to share the content better. And so I want to hear. So make sure you drop a message over there in the comments. We do a great job of getting as many of the different questions as we possibly can. We're going to talk about something very important in the beginning. We're going to talk about mental health. But before we get to that, we're going to have on our second segment, we're going to have Brad Pullin, who's a dear friend of mine. Brad is the coach of Sam Burns, as well as Turk Pettit on the Live Tour. and then a variety of other really good young college players. He's been around a long time, but one of the reasons why I love Brad so much is he's a very connected human being to players. He has a very keen sense of understanding. But when we talk, you'll understand and see that there's a beautiful, elegant simplicity of the way Brad speaks. Now, being from North Louisiana, people may say, well, he's kind of redneck. He's not. He is. But it's more than that. He has an eloquence of the way he has a conservation of words. He doesn't speak to hear himself speak. When he speaks, he hits the mark and he goes right after it. And I've watched him many times dealing with high-stress scenarios, whether it's President's Cup or the British Open or the Masters, and the way he communicates with Sam is so flawless, and I wanted everybody to get an experience with him. And so he's coming on. Then later in the show, we're going to have tour content manager from Callaway Golf, Johnny Wunder, on. Now, I mean, if you have a name like Johnny Wunder, you're going to bring it, but Johnny does bring it all the time. And Johnny's a character in his own right, but he's going to answer some questions on fitting and why it's so important. Then I'm going to ask him to help me dial in my Callaway paradigm. Not a paid sponsor, anything like that.
I got some club fitting questions too.
Yeah, you got a couple.
It'd be great.
Yes, it should be good.
Yeah.
Okay, so we got some fitting questions on fitting. How about that?
Love that.
Perfect. This is one of the reasons why I love Mental Game Live. Teresa T from Hong Kong is watching Mental Game Live. Are you freaking kidding me? People around the world are watching. She gets up early. She sent me a message. She said, I get up early and I show it to my kids and we go, and my daughter who plays. That is so cool. That is so humbling to me to have somebody who actually cares enough. So I love to hear from you guys.
Eight in the morning, like everybody else. Kong.
What's
8 in the morning 8 in the morning on Wednesday in Hong Kong right now. Just Googled it.
It's crazy.
Let's go.
I know. And you know what, guys? Everybody out there watching this, I know you can't always join me live, but we put out this content all during the week. Our goal is to grow this. I put out a message today to somebody who is a whale. Okay, massive. You get back to me soon. I know he will, and I'll be able to confirm in 2 weeks. Coming soon. Checking in from North Dakota. Is that Southern Canada or is that? Yes, I think so, Cole. So awesome. Love that. Hopefully you're getting into the 50s and 60s right now, and your summer will start. Your 2-week summer. I love up there though. Great mid, north, upper west. So let's dive into something really important here to get started though, Bash. Can we do that?
Let's do it.
Okay. Let's talk about mental health, the good, the bad, and the ugly. Okay. We're going to start with something that's not good right now. Okay. And the reason is we're living in a world, and the reason I wanted to go this way is May is Mental Health Awareness Month. And it's critical that we understand that mental health, mental wellness, our mental framework is critical for the way it's our operating system, of the way we view our life and the way we do our things. Okay. And we have a situation in today's world where a lot of people are struggling, whether it's social media, whether it's the demands that we have on our life, whatever it is, and particularly in athletes, we're having an epidemic, a pandemic of mental health concerns. And the Surgeon General just recently put out a report that talked about the concern about loneliness, isolation, which was starting before COVID, and COVID just threw gasoline on that fire. And really escalated a lot of individuals' struggle. But the biggest issue that I see in today's sports is this negative triad. And the negative triad that I talk about in my book on anxiety called Winning the Game of Anxiety is that we have 3 major factors that are in our way. Number one is we have unbelievable standards and expectations right now. Okay. People, what we think is good is phenomenal. We anchor ourselves against our greatest days. We anchor ourselves against the toughest days. And we think we should be great every single day. And that perfectionism never gets a break. Okay. And then as a result, what happens is we build more and more pressure to perform at that level. But the way that we understand that and the way that we cope is that we do more of the things that we think we should do. We become better and better because of, assets, skills, tools, you name it. We're really good at it. And so we start training that perfectionism is amazing and it works, but it doesn't work. It finally burns itself out because we get exhausted. And when people come to me and they say, I'm having anxiety, I can feel it. I know it. I can see it. And it's rampant. It doesn't matter your level of success. You can be depressed and still compete well. You can be anxious and still compete well. You can still be a great mom or dad and be depressed, but we have to take care of your mental health. And so this triad that I'll talk about in winning the game of anxiety is understanding how that these factors are all around us, and it's starting to contribute to some more concerns. All right. So Bash, let's go to where we're, a little bit of trouble and a little bit. Let's go to some of these slides. I want to go through some slides I put together. So when you have two of the greatest athletes to ever compete in their sport, Michael Phelps, Simone Biles, and I'll actually argue that Michael is probably the greatest male athlete of all time. Nobody has success like that. And Michael and I have gotten to know each other over the years, and I really value his opinion and his thought process. And just today, there was a report that went out that said he's had to come to terms with his own thoughts on suicide, and he's had to deal with that even as a competitor. The greatest athlete, the one who had the most success in the water, still struggled with that anxiety and depression and that suicidality. I bring this up because I want you guys to understand that people go through these things in life and that it's part of the natural experience. Doesn't mean it's good, doesn't mean it's what we want to do, but it's what we are experiencing, okay? And I can answer some questions on your mental health tonight. I can't do therapy online, but we can answer some questions to guide you in the right direction, because here's the deal. 46.6 million Americans right now are suffering from mental health related issues. 46. This data, by the way, was pre-COVID. We have a fentanyl crisis in the United States. We have alcoholism on an increased rate. We have more marijuana use than we've ever seen. We have a lot of stuff that's going on. Okay. People are struggling, and they're struggling because there's no relief. There's no stopping. Okay. And if you look at what the American Psychological Association put out a couple of years ago, that 2020, 2021, and 2022 are on the record as the most stressful years in record. You take a COVID pandemic, you take social unrest, you got contentious presidential elections, you got social media destroying our minds with their algorithms. And as a result, our anxiety and our depression have tripled during this time. Y'all, this is important. But a lot of times we thought that athletes were kind of protected against it. But in higher education anxiety, what we have found is that athletes are actually at rates consistent with the regular population. So how do we combat this? That's going to be the big question, okay? We know that athletes are under more pressure than ever. We know they're experiencing rates of anxiety and depression at levels that are unprecedented, okay? But when you ask and you survey people and you ask them, hey, are we putting our players under more pressure? Is our DMs that we're sending our players, I hope you die, or you choker and things like that, is it helping? And people will say, no, our athletes' mental health is a primary concern. It's the next slide, Bash. Take a look at this one. This is important. Is that U.S. adults know that we have an issue in athletes and mental health. Like, we know it's a problem, but the problem is we don't want to sacrifice. I think the next slide talks about it. Is that we have to prioritize mental health, but we don't. Okay. Places like where I work at the University of Alabama or at LSU, highest rates of utilization. I mean, the utilization rates of our athletes are incredible. Okay. And the power of this is that we have to get ahead of it and help people. So what's the good? What can we do about it? All right. So let me tell you a couple of things, and I'm going to be honest with you guys. Okay. I struggle to get individuals into therapeutic arrangements. I struggle to get people in to see psychiatrists because there's not enough access. People are struggling to find ways in. But here's what we have to do. We can't stop. We have to demand change. We have to demand access. We must demand getting treatment. You don't need to suffer because you think it's okay and you got to pull yourself up by the bootstraps. People who suffer from depression, like the data post heart attack with depression, you're 3 times more likely to die if you get depressed after a heart attack than if you don't. Your inflammation rates in your body escalate. Your diabetes gets worse. Your arthritis gets worse. All those things are worse if you're suffering from depression. Here's the best place to go. Go to your primary care physician. Start there. Ask for help. There are amazing treatments, medication, psychotherapy, everything. You can still compete and play at the best if you are suffering. This month, every session that we do in Mental Game Live is going to have a focus session on Mental Game Live. The next one that we do, May 22nd, I'm going to have a deep dive on what we can do to actually help. But the first start is ask for help from the people around you. Don't suffer alone. Don't believe you need to do this by yourself. Put this out there and get out there and talk. If you're a male, guys, men, you suck at asking for help. You suck at it, okay? You go in, you say, my body hurts, my stomach hurts, my head hurts. You may be dealing with depression or stress, okay? Ask for help. It's not a sign of weakness. Women, you guys are amazing at it, okay? Don't suffer alone, though, because you think you're just busy or tired or the game. A lot of people, even in sports, will suffer from mental health issues because they think that they shouldn't be depressed because they should love the game. That's BS. Don't do it, okay? Go and ask for help. Basham, any thoughts on this?
Yeah, I think it's one of those. It really, really helped me asking for help. I've been one to struggle with anxiety. I think we've had conversations about it. Just how we do. I feel like as men, really, I always saw it as a sign of like lack of toughness or something like that. When really it takes a lot of strength to say, "Hey, man, I'm not feeling good. Something's wrong. I need to at least talk about it." Because I was one that's like anything negative or anything. Let's just say I had bad coping mechanisms with stress. And,
so did I. Yeah, so did I.
And so talking and really understanding and learning what legitimate ways to cope with stress and anxiety.
And I can guarantee, knowing you and knowing you being an athlete, most athletes cope by doing what? We immerse ourselves in our sport.
Right.
And we immerse ourselves in our utility and our functioning. And what happens is we beat ourselves down even more. It just hurts.
Sure.
We make it harder and harder and harder. We don't do a good job of it. Okay. And what happens is you keep putting your hand in that meat grinder. I talked to one of my major league players today, and he's doing really well. He's not depressed or anxious right now, but we were just talking about the grind and the burden, right?
Mm-hmm.
And all of a sudden people think, oh, I shouldn't be feeling this way because I love to play the game. It's like, are you kidding me? Waking up, not knowing how the outcomes are going to be, dealing with the uncertainty, that can be tough. But you don't have to suffer alone. You don't. That's why we're here, right? And so we can help. I implore everybody out there from a mental health, if you're a mental health practitioner, psychiatrist, psychologist, social worker, therapist, counselor, substance abuse counselor, we have to step up right now and get content out that people can consume. Doesn't have to always be one-on-one. Write blogs, get information out, give people tips to help them manage and at least get the stress off a little bit. Because I'm going to tell you, one of the greatest things that ever happened to me was I read some content from Stephen Hayes. I talk about it in my anxiety book, but Stephen Hayes changed me because he had a therapeutic approach called ACT. And I'm a cognitive behaviorist, okay? I'm somebody who looks at the way we think and the way we act and I try to put it together. And I was struggling. I was like, why am I having these thoughts? Like, dude, I should be better than that. And I suffered from panic attacks and I've had anxiety. But my life changed when I started realizing that I can't change what comes in my head and I can't change how I feel. But I can develop an objective forward and commit to it, despite how I feel, despite what I think. It won't break me. It won't bring me. Teresa, the best book on anxiety is Get Out of Your Life, Get Out of Your Head and Into Your Life by Stephen Hayes. Bar done. Okay? And I'm going to keep talking about it. I had a podcast with him years ago. We'll make sure we post that somewhere at some point and get that back out there. But that is a brilliant book. Get Out of Your Head and Into Your Life by Stephen C. Hayes. Anything that he writes, I'm behind. It changed my life because I started realizing that what I was feeling, I didn't need to repress. I didn't need to resist. I needed to start embracing it and bringing it in. You guys are not alone. We can help you. Coaches, talk about it. Communicate about it. Don't share it. You don't have to self-disclose. But sharing and knowing that it's okay does help. That's my soapbox moment. And, oh, by the way, Bash, that anxiety book I think is pretty good. So wait till you read it.
Nice. I will say, too, I can put it I'll find the link real quick.
Okay.
When we're on the break. I'll put it in the description. And then if you're watching this recorded, I'll put it in the description, show the description for or actually, you know what? I can do something better. I can put it right up there in a card. So
Perfect.
We'll link it to Stephen
Perfect.
Hayes.
See, when you're on your
podcast,
10th episode, we get better. Hey, if you're watching me on Instagram Live, please move over to YouTube and watch. I'm telling you, this is where it's at. It can be really good over here. All right. When we come back, we're going to have a kick butt interview with Brad Pullin, one of my dear friends, somebody I love to death. Hang with us. Watch this. Simplicity and conservation of words. It's to the point. it All right, now I'm happy to have a good friend of mine on, Brad Pullin, who is the Director of Instruction at Squire Creek in North Louisiana, in Shoogront, Louisiana, which is in the middle of nowhere, but a beautiful golf course. But the reason I wanted to have Brad on, not only is he the coach for Sam Burns, and he and I work a lot together, but Brad has got a dynamic and really robust junior teaching program up in North Louisiana, and the amount of players coming out of there and doing great things is amazing. But I've been around Brad for years, and I know how he coaches. So, Brad, welcome to Mental Game Live.
Thanks for having me, Bhrett. I appreciate it.
So, when you're coaching a junior, talk to me about what you look at, because I know every parent comes in there and they come off with the idea and they have the desires of, look, I just want to give the best for my kid. But really, what is it that what you see in your job as a coach to give them the right foundations and formulation to be a great player?
Well, I mean, obviously, we look at the way that they swing the club, but it goes a lot more than that, just in looking at every phase of the game and kind of what defines them as a player, what their strengths and weaknesses are. And then outside of that, just building a plan on how we can improve and get better. So
when you're looking at a junior and they come in, can you identify who's kind of got the it factor, and how would you define that?
Yeah, I mean, there's obviously been kids that we've come across over the years that would have what you would call the it factor, because they're just a little bit different. Mainly you can see it in their competitive nature and how they compete, how they attack every day and want to get better. So yeah, I mean, physically, if they have those tools and skills, you can see that, but also just in how much of a competitor and how much that drives them to get better.
Let's talk about competitiveness, because one of the things that we dove into last week were some different levels of competitiveness. And I think competitiveness is an aspect that doesn't get coached a lot.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't get coached for a variety of reasons. One is I don't know if we can measure it, but two, we really don't know how to impact it. So what do you do there? And when you see competitiveness, what are you focusing on and what are you looking at?
Well, I mean, like I just got off the phone with one of our players that's playing in Arizona right now. And I think the biggest thing is that they learn so much from these experiences. So they get put in these experiences and they see, like for him, it was, the example is that, hey, this isn't as much physical. Like I have the physical tools necessary to compete and shoot a score. I should have shot that score today, but I allowed myself to go to a place mentally where he was frustrated. And not only did it affect him on one hole, it affected him on 3 holes after that. So he would have qualified had he just kind of, gotten through that little phase there where he was struggling and picked himself up and ready to compete on the next tee for the next shot. So,
well, you and I deal with that quite often on the PGA Tour. Players have a bad week, bad round, bad back nine, and all of a sudden it's definitely a very emotional state because they're putting everything in their heart and soul out there to play their best.
mm-hmm.
But they don't have a lot of control. They don't have control of those factors. And when that kind of situation happens, so let's take Sam, for example. And we're not diving into anything secret here, top secret.
Sure.
But he comes off of a tough round. He's a competitor. He comes off. There's a lot of things players can learn from the way Sam addresses things. So where was an experience that you saw firsthand where the frustration was there, but then he was able to turn it and look at it from a collaborative or developmental stance?
Yeah, I think it comes from a place of like the daily competitiveness that we put into like practice plans or, and I'm a competitor. I want to compete. I don't want to get beat. And that is a long history of, me growing up in youth sports and competing. You gain experience in those areas. And so like for Sam, for example, I mean, like if he's not competing where he feels like that he should, or in times like that, like this past week, it was like, hey, I'm not competing where I feel like I have my best stuff. But what I do know is that I'm really proud of the way he competed, and he got the best out of that round. And so I think that the players hear that from the coaches, and you and I, and so to continue to emphasize that, hey, this isn't about just one round. This is about the volume of the work and what we're doing.
So that's a tough place, right? Because I know parents, and we all want the best for our kids. You know, I've been in that situation too. A kid has a bad day, and all of a sudden it's like, I got to get on the phone and call coach. I got to tell them what went wrong. I got to tell them why things weren't good. I got to hurry up and get them out there so they can fix the swing, because if they can hit that 8-iron or they can hit more fairways, they're going to score better. And I think we're missing the boat a little bit, right? I mean, what do you tell parents? Because it's a developmental pathway. You know, like those that are listening to this tonight can understand. It's like, look, we all think these guys are in there breaking up locker rooms when they miss cuts. What are some skills that you've been able to implement for your juniors to kind of have a landscape of what happens?
Yeah, I heard a long time ago, I don't know where it was, but, you know, when you're looking at a round, you know, what was good, what was bad, and what do we need to do to improve it? So, like, what steps do we need to take to try to continue to improve and get better? I've seen situations and environments where parents are involved, like you said. Like we all as parents, me being a parent as well, we want what's best for our kids, and we want them to have success. The motives in that can be different at times, and I think that that's worth evaluating. So I've seen environments where it's really good and positive and done what you could say is quote unquote the right way to do it. And I've also seen the other side of that, where it's an environment that's not good for the kid and the student, and they feel tons of pressure in that, and it's all performance based, and so there's not this like 30,000 foot view of where we are now and where we want to go, whether or not we have someone to guide us in that or not. So yeah, I mean, I think the biggest thing is like for kiddos now is where they're so quick to jump, and they're so quick to look for something different. And so not just in like looking for another coach or anything like that, but just like looking for a different feel, or looking for something else that's going to be magical, that's going to help them in that way. And it's really not about that. It's about the daily and what you put in there.
What do you, when you look at a player and you look at a course of a season, so let's say you have a high school kid, let's use a boy who's coming in. Obviously the recruiting is so tough to go to the best places, Louisiana Tech there, LSU, Ole Miss, Mississippi State, you know, the SEC schools, Texas, those types of places, Florida. Everybody wants to go to the big schools. How do you look at them and help them understand their own developmental pathway? Because that's the hard thing. You know, we look at these standards. You know, a kid will tell me, he's like, well, look at Sam. Well, Sam played 2 years of college because he was ready to turn pro.
Sure.
But there's other guys that stayed. I mean, Colin Markowa stayed 4 years. And don't be afraid of what your path is. But as coaches, we have to be careful to not oversell hope and things like that, particularly for parents, is to have that tough conversation to say, this is the pathway I think they need to be on, and this is how I'm going to coach them. How do you sit down with them? Because the reason I ask this is I know a lot of coaches in our industry are real quick on like, well, if I fix this, if I fix that, then go play. And they're not coaching players. They're not seeing the landscape that I want them to have. And I think it's scary to me because I feel like we're missing players' own development by doing that.
Sure. I think that that's definitely lacking. I would say, you know, the biggest thing is that a lot of times the parents don't have the patience to do that. They don't see it from that perspective, that, hey, this game is hard, it's challenging, and it's not like they wanted to shoot that score. I mean, they're putting everything that they have into it as well. But I think, you know, as you continue to progress and the better that you get, what I've seen is that, you know, there becomes more and more voices. There's more and more opinions and more people that want to tell you how you should do it. And sticking to what you did up until that point, and, you know, really thinking about it hard about what is the foundation for what I've done so far. And that doesn't stop. So like when you progress from high school to college, well, at college, you start having success, and then you have more people that are going to tell you that, oh, well, you need to do this or you need to do that. But really sticking hard to those foundations of what got you there to start with.
Absolutely. When you see a breakthrough happen and a player makes one of those breakthroughs where they're shooting 76, 77, next thing you know, they're shooting 71, they're competing for tournaments. You see it on PGA Tour, a player all of a sudden keeps finding themselves up in the top 20. I mean, Wyndham Clark is, people are like, oh my God, his biggest check prior to this was $450,000. He's had chances to win other tournaments. He hasn't gotten deep enough on Sunday, but he's starting to be in the regular conversation. Just 2 weeks ago at the Zurich, he and Bo Hostler were in the final group. They just didn't get it done on Sunday. We know firsthand on Sam the amount of experience came from being in those situations, but a lot of people see those as failures. Yeah. And they see them as like devastating effects on them because I can't believe I missed this opportunity. Mm-hmm. When you get those phone calls, you're going to say, well, Bhrett, that's your job. But when you get those phone calls, where do you go? Like, what are you trying to do? Because players don't always want to hear, well, it's coming, hang in there. They're a little bit more fiery than that.
Yeah, they don't want the cheerleading. I just tell them to call Bhrett, and then we're good. No, like, you can't identify or be tabbed by what someone else is going to say about you. Like in Wyndham's case, like that dude's a competitor, and he's a really good player, and he's a guy that I've been around a little bit, and he does his process. I mean, like he learned from those situations like so many guys do. Yeah. Like I saw some interviews that he did afterwards about, like I just told myself I wasn't going to let myself go there again, or I wasn't going to buy into that I hadn't done this before. It's like, I can do this. So just the mental confidence of knowing that you can do it.
I'm pulling out my phone because I get a lot of Instagram questions that I think are really good for coaches to get. And I'm going to pull a couple up because on people on Instagram, every Monday and Thursday, I do Ask Me Anything. I get amazing questions. And we have captured every single question for the last year and a half. Not one has gone through us because it's content, right? Mm-hmm. But, it's interesting. It's let me see if I can pull up one of these real quick. Let me just see. I just clicked the wrong button because I think it's important that people understand what we're saying. One of them is that I get all the time is, why can't I take what I do on the range and take it out to the golf course? And one of the mistakes I see as coaches is that it's all there, now go play. That's like saying the car is great in the shop, but it hasn't been run on the track yet. What are the things that you focus on to take a player to take their range game to the golf course? Because I can talk about it mentally, but they all say, but if I could just hit my driver a little better, if I could just, not blade that wedge, why do I chunk a wedge when I'm, playing? That's a combination of mental and physical. Where do you take them for that?
I'll take them straight to the golf course.
Okay.
And so, like, I would not be a very good coach if I had to stand in this bay here and on a mat and teach how to hit a 7-iron.
You like to take guys on the course and compete.
I love getting on the golf course because I want to see, one, how they transfer that over and take that physical ability and the ability to hit quality shots sitting there on a flat lie, how they take that out to the golf course. And then two, how do we put that in different situations with trouble on the ride, or, where does their process go when they get a ball above their feet, or what are we going to have to change to get this shot to be able to work and execute it? So
when you're seeing a player and they're making those mistakes, are you coaching them in that moment? Or are you letting them work and try to self-correct over time?
I think it's a combination of both. Sometimes I'll let them work through it so that they can adapt and self-coach themselves in it, and then interject from what they said that they were feeling or what they thought the ball was going to do, and that way we can talk through it that way. I just feel like too often, as soon as someone messes up and hits a bad shot, we interject and we want to do it for them. I'm not going to be standing there all the time to be able to do that for them. And so I want them learning that themselves, and we can learn through it together.
When you're out on tour with Sam and we're walking fairways, I don't watch you do a whole lot of teaching.
Mm-hmm.
I see you doing a lot of observing. What are you looking at? I mean, I know the lies and differences, but a Tuesday practice round, right? He's got a money match or he's out there playing with some good buddies. What are you looking for? What are the things that somebody can say, okay, when I go do a practice round, I can take these out there to practice and understand what I'm doing?
Yeah, I mean, we have different fundamental checks that we're looking at with his swing. So that might involve just video and while we're out there.
So videoing in a new environment, the difference that changes between being in your shop, being on the range, being out on the golf course. Yep.
And then can kind of relate that back to like practice sessions that we were seeing at home, or relate that back to what we were seeing on the range. You know, what was the intent on the shot? What shot is more comfortable right now? Why that would be. And that way, when we go back to practice on the range, then that can become something that I've built and thought about to be able to present to him and go, hey, here's why I think that's happening.
Do you, when you go out there and you watch other coaches,
Mm-hmm.
what are you looking for? What are you trying to steal? What are you trying to observe? You know, sponge per se. It's not stealing; it's respect. But
there's a lot of great teachers out there, and anything that they're saying, I'm in tune to. I hope so that I'm learning. Just like I try to do, like in a practice session that we had this morning with Sam, there was some things that I picked up on and we talked through, and so I was learning then. Anything that can benefit my knowledge and what we're trying to do as coaches, I think that's awesome, and I'm open to it.
Who are your mentors? Who do you turn to? Where do you go for information in the golf industry, outside the golf industry?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people that are right here in our community that I'm close to. We've got a close-knit group of friends, people at our church. My father-in-law and one of his best friends is one of a huge mentor for a group of men that are here at home. So we spend a lot of time with them too. So,
what's the toughest thing about being on tour coaching besides being away from family? Because I know I got a question on my Ask Me Anything is like, what does it take to get out there and coach? And you know, I know that we all laugh when we're out there, and the coaches become pretty tight because, you know, we're scrounging for food or trying to find a place to eat, or during the day, you know, our 14-hour days. But and I'm not joking about that. What's the toughest part of coaching out there?
You know, I mean, there's obviously ups and downs of good playing and poor play, and a lot of long days, long nights that you're investing, trying to prepare your player to have, you know, to be more consistent and have good stuff more often. So, I mean, there's challenges of that, but I take it as like, man, it's like a dream to be able to coach at this level, to be around these people that are world-class and what they're trying to do. I just feel very honored to be able to be alongside them.
What do you, you know, I think about the word consistency that you just mentioned. A lot of people are looking to play consistent golf. Does it exist?
I mean, what you say all the time is we're just trying to get the average better, and I love that. So, I think the consistency range can obviously improve for everyone and what they're shooting. So it's a hard game, though. Yeah.
Coming up next, we have Johnny Wunder from Callaway Golf coming on, and obviously equipment has made a tremendous ability and difference. You know, there's this fight right now about the ball rolling back. We have drivers that are hot. They're going. That's what fans want to see, though, isn't it? I mean, absolutely. Fans don't want to see 240-yard drives from the best players in the world.
Yeah. I think, yeah, I think the game's in a great place now. So why mess with it?
You've got a player on the PGA Tour and the Live Tour, right?
Mm-hmm.
What do you think the benefits of having two tours, and then where do you see this going?
I don't know where it will go. I just want to show up and coach golf, and that doesn't matter where
You
they
don't care
are.
where it is.
That's right.
Gotcha. Favorite place to go on tour? St. Andrews was pretty special last year.
That was awesome.
And just for our listener, not only did Brad go, but he rented a Scottish farmhouse that was 20 minutes away.
Yes.
7 kilometers or whatever they call it over there.
I drove it.
You drove it every day.
Anyone can do it if I can do it.
Yeah. There was a book, what was it? What was that old book of Connecticut and King Arthur's Court or whatever? We had a redneck on the Scottish roadways.
Exactly.
I mean, pretty close.
Yeah.
So favorite place to go, Coach?
Going overseas has been awesome to be able to see some of that. Like a lot of the U.S. Open venues have been great. Just the historic venues that we've been to. Really cool to kind of dive back and see the golf that was played there back in the day. So,
well, it's we're excited. I'll see you at the PGA Championship in 10 days or 8 days, whatever it is. Get up to Rochester and Oak Hill. What do we know about Oak Hill?
It could be cold up there. They had snow a few weeks ago. So
yeah, I'm looking forward to that.
It's gonna be
it seems like every time we go to a major, the weather gets very volatile.
Yeah.
The Masters this year was 82 on the first day and frigid by Saturday and Sunday.
Yeah.
Last year at Southern Hills at the PGA, same way. Brookline, pretty close to the same way at the Country Club. But I did get a chance to take you to Fenway Park for your first time ever.
Oh, that was unbelievable. It was awesome.
Wasn't that good?
So,
I walked in and just for our listeners, we had dinner and I said, we're going to a Fenway game tonight. We showed up in the 5th inning and we really didn't want to go. I mean, we didn't really want to go sit there the whole time. It had been a long week at this point. And we walk in and I said, buddy, if you want to know my venues, this is it. Fenway Park. It was a beautiful night. We stuck around about the 8th inning and then split before the crowd got bad. But always great to hang out with you. Thank you for doing this. Go enjoy a flag football game, and we'll be in touch.
We'll talk to you soon. Thank you, Bhrett.
You got it, man. Coming in live from Arizona and from the Good Invitational. Am I right?
You are actually. I'm coming live from a car. I'm not driving the car, but I'm in a car in Arizona.
That's all right. If we weren't going to be hated on for driving in the car, you could probably do both. Tour content manager, Callaway Golf, absolutely killing it on the PGA Tour right now. How many victories so far for the Tour? The Callaway Paradigm driver.
I believe with Rahm's major, I think that made it 9 for us so far.
9
this year.
Since January.
Yeah, I think let me see if I can mouth them off. I got Rahm's got 4, Justin Rose non-staffer 1, Si Woo, Chris Kirk, Burns. That's 8. Well, that's 9, isn't it? That's 9.
I think it's 9. Yeah, I expect a couple more from 2 of the names you've mentioned on that list.
So do I.
Talk to me about. I think the reason I wanted to have you on was twofold. One is, we talk a lot about strategy. We talk a lot of swing. We talk about a lot of things in sports, but club fitting is so critical because if you don't do it right, people find themselves in trouble. And a lot of my buddies that I play with are like, they're changing heads and all this, and they're not getting fit. Why is it so important for the best players in the world to be fit properly?
Well, it's important for everybody. I mean, and granted, there is and I have to say this out loud because getting fit in today's game, it's expensive. It's a cost, right? It would be considered still, also, although essential, it's still a luxury item. If you're going to go out and buy a brand new set of sticks, and you are if you take your game seriously, meaning you want to get better and you're going to invest your time in your game and you're going to go out and buy new golf clubs, then get them fit, because it's only to your benefit to have tools that are made for you. Now, can you go out and play decent golf with badly fit clubs? Sure. But, why? If you don't have to.
It's like running a marathon with poorly fit shoes.
Right. So, and the fitting has become more of a common thing. So you don't have to go to the really special fitting houses anymore. You can go to Golf Galaxy. You can go to Dick's Sporting Goods, Superstore. I mean, there's competent fitters everywhere you go. And it's an important part of the process if you want to play good golf. I mean, I've seen enough now to know, like, there's something to a perfectly fit set of clubs, and it's part of the investment in your game and yourself and your enjoyment of the game.
I'm not a staff. I'm not on a staff as a psychologist. I kind of fall into this weird little gap. But one of the reasons I love doing is I love going into the Callaway truck, because it's not just about you guys on tour. You've got statisticians. You've got people that are analyzing. It's not just. I mean, there's gearheads and there's golf nerds in there, but it's also performance nerds. People are doing whatever it takes to help somebody perform at the highest level. When you go out on tour and you're working with the guys out there, the players, and you're a gearhead. I mean, you're a self-admitted gearhead, right? I mean, you love this stuff, but you also have an understanding of how to communicate it. How do you, when you see that process go in week to week, give me some insight about what your colleagues and you do on tour.
Well, it's I would call us a performance-based, stats-based equipment entity on tour. So not to say that the other companies don't use stats, but we are very stat-heavy. So we don't. Players come to us and want to change things and tweak things, and they see something in their ball flight that needs to get changed. Sure, like that, those transactions happen. But if at the end of the year, the way that we evaluate players, it's always looking at their stats. And when we actually go to a player, say for example, it's Sam Burns.
Yep.
If we rolled up on him and said, Sam, we need to look at your iron play, maybe we need to look at a new set of irons, it would be because the numbers don't lie. The numbers are telling us that we probably need to do something with your irons. It happened to him back in 2019 or 20.
Well, I'm going to be honest with you. It happened at the Players' Championship this year. I'll tell you that story in a minute.
Yeah, and he switched from what was a set of irons called the double dots into our TCB iron because the TCB spun a little bit more and his dispersion got tighter. And I'll give you an interesting story. Sam, when I met Sam, he had our MD5 Jaws Raw wedges in 46, 50, 56, and 60 was his wedge setup. And he would do the TrackMan combines with Bhrett over at Squire Creek, and they would work on that. And the stats started to tell him that he was not great from 140 to 115. Like his stats weren't.
Pretty big place to have a gap.
Correct. Now, some players on tour can make up for difference. If you're an elite putter or you're an elite driver of the golf ball, there's always, tour golf is not everybody does things at a 10. They don't. Some guys do things at a 2, but, and some things at a 10.
And Sam people, that's important for you to understand.
Right. Like, and I can go deeper into that. But that part of his bag was not good, which in his case is pitching wedge to gap wedge, 50-degree wedge. So he ended up going into a TCB pitching wedge and a TCB A wedge because they're more forgiving and his misses are better. And essentially, once that change happened, I think last year, right around Torrey Pines, that part of his bag got efficient. And we all know what he did last year. He had a hell of a year last year. His wedge play got substantially better. And it doesn't mean he's knocking down flake sticks all day long. It's on tour. It's not about making your good shots better. It's about raising the floor of your bad shots.
There it is, people. Bingo.
It's a constant effort of raising the floor, raising the floor, raising the floor. So if your peak level's a 10 and your floor is a 5, let's get that floor to 5.5. Because this could be millions of dollars if you get the floor to 5.5. And all of a sudden the floor is a 6. Like right now, John Rahm's ceiling's at a 10 and his floor is at a 7.
Yeah.
Tiger Woods would be the closest thing I would ever say. From 99 to 2009, his floor was a 10 and his ceiling was a 10 and his floor was like an 8 or a 9.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So
I always tell my players I want their averages to get better. I don't want them chasing because when they stiff it, they stiff it, right? But one of the things that I walked into y'all's shop at the Players, and admittedly, Sam was not having his greatest ball striking year with irons at that point.
Right.
And I saw some data with regards to swing speed, and I was like, when he gets a little bit more stressed, he tends to go at it a little harder. And we started working on trusting a little bit more. 2 weeks later, he wins. And and I really believe that a lot of that had to come to that performance side. And that's why I love working with you guys, because I get some information that's very important. And Sam may go, yeah, I mean, that's intuitive. But to me as a coach, that's critical. Like, that was such feedback I needed to know right then to make it work.
Right. Well, yeah, I mean, and it's funny, like the stats guys to me, like Hortzy, who and there's a lot of stats guys out there. You can get over inundated with information, Quad and TrackMan and the stats can be overwhelming, and I would say like anything in life can be overused. But the thing that I find interesting is I was talking to a statistician. I think his name is John Hunt. He'd been on the PGA Tour for a long time, and we were talking about a certain player that's not on our staff. And, he kind of said, like, look, if you saw this guy's golf swing, you would think that he is an elite ball striker. Okay. I'm not going to say his name, but it's one of those guys that's always had a picturesque golf swing.
Yep.
And he would say, well, the stats don't say that. The stats would actually tell us that he's a terrible ball striker. He's never going to be a good ball striker, no matter how good his golf swing looks. But he wins if he drives it far, not straight, but if he drives it far, he wedges it okay, and he putts it good, he wins. So all he needs to be is not crappy in the other areas. And if he does these at an 8 and the rest of them at a 4, he'll win. So he's like, you'll go see guys on tour that are struggling with their driving, and they'll be out there beating drivers day after day after day. If they're not a good driver, if they've never been a good driver, they're never going to be a good driver.
That's important for people to hear.
Unless there's a major shift in their technique, which means that they're taking their DNA and essentially mentally going left-handed to right-handed, which Tiger did 3 times in his career. It just once again speaks to how gnarly that guy was.
Yeah, that's crazy.
You have to change your functional DNA to change who you are, and it's really interesting how that all works. And the example I use would be Steve Stricker, who won 3 or 4 times in the mid '90s, and then had a complete physical, mental, existential meltdown. He couldn't find a fairway and changed his swing over 2 years. He completely changed how he hit the golf ball, and then he became a good driver of the golf ball. But you can't ball hit your way into a new golf swing. And I think as normal golfers, we like to think we can. We can't.
Well, don't you? It's funny, right? And what you're saying is important. Is this tour player you're talking about? If you had looked at it from the outside, we got to make this better, this better, and this better. And what John was saying, which I always teach, you got to know who you are and I call it the psychological fingerprint. We have to know who you are and what your formula for success is, because putting a ton of resources at fixing something ain't gonna fix it. And the weeks that it's good enough, like guys that are not great putters, the weeks they putt really well, they have a chance to win. The guy, or they win at the British Open, where it neutralizes great putters. So you got to know the horses for the courses and what they're doing, right? Don't you agree?
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And you look at somebody like Bernhard Langer, according to the stats and his ball speed and the way he hits it, and if you went through like his actual strike efficiency, he's not scaring anybody away. But he wins all the time. It's because he manages himself. And, well, obviously he puts the teeth out of the ball. That helps. But he manages the rest of himself effectively at a constant level. So as golfers, as amateur golfers, I always tell people that are newish to the game, watching tour golf, watching the kids is fun. If you want to learn how to play golf, like I would say the modern tour player plays over a golf course. They're hitting it over dog legs and over forced carries and all this stuff. If you want to watch players play the golf course as designed, go watch the LPGA and the Champions Tour, because they are playing the golf course as designed, hitting human numbers into par 3s. They're not hitting 7-iron from 190. That's going to do more for your game, because it's more chess than checkers.
Yeah. By the way, I'm playing in the Regions Tradition Pro-Am tomorrow at 2:10.
Are you really? Who are you playing with?
Playing with Billy Mayfair.
Are you really? Okay. Well,
I know.
Rocco Media is a dear close friend of mine, so he'll be out there. So say hi to Rocco.
Yeah, I'll find him and say hey. I played with Kirk Triplett last year, which was incredible. He was a consummate pro. But I'll be putting my paradigm in play, so Hey, answer me some club fitting stuff. I mean, you're a club fitting guru. Before you went to Callaway, you were writing on it. Talk about the paradigm. This is not an ad, guys. This is interest, okay? This is not a placed ad by Callaway. There's nothing like that. I wanted to have you on because I'm interested.
Okay.
The triple diamond versus the other one. What's the difference? Because I've seen that's like seeing a Kardashian at a restaurant in LA. People see a triple diamond and they're like, "Oh my god, it's a triple!" Like, what is that?
Well, it's who's, how do I say this? Each driver is going to be different for everybody. So, that's why we make 3. So just because it says triple diamond and it's the tour driver doesn't mean that all of our tour players are going to fit into it. Typically, for example, Sam Burns on our roster is not usually a triple diamond player. He's typically more of a paradigm standard model head, which is a 460cc, more forgiving, more spin. That's the head he had with Maverick. That's the head he had with Epic Speed. Was the retail models, a retail driver. It was, and so the difference is triple diamond, our tour driver. It's the one that most of our guys play. We'll call it lower spin than the other ones are, mildly lower spin, but it's easier to shape, and the shape's a little bit more tour, if that's a thing.
Yeah, no, that makes sense.
But then you have paradigm standards, your fastball down the middle. It fits the most amount of people. It's got adjustability in the back. It's fast. It launches high. And then the Paradigm X is kind of like your Prince Jumbo tennis racket. It's got a big, it's forgiving. It's got a high MOI. I don't want to call it an anti-slice driver by any stretch. It's the easiest of the 3 to turn over. But, they're all fast, and they all have their value. Now, I could probably get, if I had Sam Burns in front of me, I'm sure there's a Paradigm standard head that I could find that would work for him. I'm sure there's a Paradigm X head that would probably work for him if it was jerry-rigged correctly, and there's a triple diamond head that would work for him. It just kind of depends on who the fitter is and how that goes and how the players deliver in the club. And, Dean Tickle, who works a lot with Sam, and Kellen Watson, they found a driver that Sam really likes. And Sam likes drivers that kind of have a little bit more loft on them and a face angle that he can start left, which means that the face is kind of pointing towards his left shoulder, and one that's going to give him enough spin to get the ball to curve. He wants the ball to curve.
He likes that cut.
Yeah, and most of them do. Rom's the same way. So,
well, perfect example is, I mean, you take a look at the guys when they've won. John at the Augusta on 14 hitting that big cut.
Yeah.
Sam at the at the match play, working his way around a golf course the way he did, just brilliant execution. So, that's let me just say that's the reason I'm a fan of Callaway. I like the winning.
Yeah, we win. I mean, and you have your years. We're having a great year this year. It helps that our, I would say, I don't want to say we have a top heavy staff, but we have 3 players that are kind of perennially in the top 15 to top 10 in the world. And at any given moment, one of them could go off. And, this is going to be, you work with Sam, for example, like these next 3 majors, if I had the 3 players to talk about them, Rom's obviously proven himself in majors. Xander's that, has smelled blood in the majors, so he knows what that's like. This is a big year for Sam to get, I don't need to say he necessarily needs to win one, but he needs to get in the hunt and in the fight on Sunday in a major just to see what it's like. I think winning the match play was a big step in the right direction. I think beating Scotty in the semifinal emotionally was a big step for him.
In Scotty's home place, home crowd. I mean, so many good things there.
100%. And I don't discount the fact that is a personal thing for Sam. They're best friends. They play, and Scotty's been playing out of his mind the last 18 months, but Sam's as good or better than Scotty is. And, but Sam needs to, we could say that to him until he's blue in the face, but he needs to say it to himself. So I think beating him on his home turf, and Scotty did what Scotty does, which is kind of be like a gnat and, never quite go away, but Sam fought him off. And I had a feeling that if he got to that final against Cam Young, I knew he was going to step on his face because it's like he already beat the guy. The final happened in the semifinal.
Yeah, so, I agree.
Yeah, and so it's going to be a fun year. I mean, to your point, like you liking Callaway, it took us 5 years to get things the way they look now, like to get to the point of how they look, at present moment. So this has been 4 or 5 years of a lot of hard work with, fostering the relationships with Burns and getting Xander and getting Rom and making sure we have the right equipment for him. And I think we're kind of killing the game right now. So.
Yeah, and I think for people to understand, like there are times that guys look at their equipment and it doesn't feel right. Sam and John both told me going in, coming out of LA, there was a little bit of concern, and it just takes, it's like finding a good pair of jeans. When you got a good pair of jeans and all of a sudden you look down and it's got a rip in it, you're
right.
like, crap. And you got to work a new one into that. And that's what it takes sometimes for these guys. People will say, oh my God, what's the matter? Nothing. It's just the equipment that has to get into dialed in. And that's sometimes what it is.
Well, and with these guys, it's not distance. I've never once heard any of our staff come on the truck and ask to hit it further, ever, never, in 3 years. The most important things for a tour player is spin management and start lines. It's got to start on the right line with the right spin. That's literally all they care about.
If you could tell parents, my last question for you, who've got junior golfers and they're just sending it, like they stand on the range, because I hear this all the time. My kid's unbelievable. I mean, look at him. His high swing speed, high ball speed. And my first thought is, dude, we got to play. We got to play the game.
Yeah.
Okay. So from a fitting standpoint, what would you suggest, recommend? How would you take them through that process to say, here are the things that we would recommend for you?
Spin. I would build as much spin as they can handle into their golf bag. I would make sure that at any point they're never at a spin deficiency with any club that they have in their bag. So
for the novice person, explain why spin is so important.
Spin is the king of aerodynamics when it relates to golf. It's what keeps the ball in the air. It's what makes it curve. It's what, theoretically, spin is control. So on tour, we talk about keeping the ball in your hand constantly. The best players in the world have the ball in their hand all the time. It's never out of their control. Young players that hit it hard tend to forget that the ball's still got to be within your control. So what I would teach, if it was my son and he was 16 and he was moving it at 180 miles an hour, I would give him the spinniest golf ball he could possibly find, make sure he plays with a lot of loft, and learn how to take speed off and learn how to hit some nuanced shots, and make sure that I don't need to play elite golf. You don't need to move the ball both ways. I agree.
Thank you.
Yeah, you don't need to. I will take a John Rahm that hits 95% cuts over anybody.
I agree,
because the least amount of variables that you have to deal with means the least amount of stress. So,
preach it from the back, please.
Yeah, that's a huge deal. Yeah.
Oh my God, it drives me nuts. I got to hit it through the 9 windows. Why? Hit it through one window every time.
Yeah, that's a big advantage.
Well, Johnny, it was great grabbing you. I know you're at the Good. Where are we at in that tournament? Cut today or what?
No, cut was yesterday. Sam Murphy, who I caddied for, shot 66. So him and I are going on to tomorrow. We made it to the final 12. His brother, who you probably know, Mac Murphy.
I know them both. Is that Sam next to you? Or are you?
No, it's my social media manager, Zach. That's Zach.
Man, I thought you were the social media guy.
No, I'm still part of the social media team, and I'm not the guy. I am the manager of all the tour content. So
okay, all right, yeah, my man Murph, another one of Brad Pullin's clients. Man, he bombs it.
You want to talk about raw talent? This kid is scary. Well, both of them are.
Yeah, both of them are good. I mean,
scary good.
Well, do a good job so I don't have to work harder. Okay.
I'm trying.
Okay.
I'm trying. Yeah.
Keep it good. Keep our guys good, and I'll see you at Oak Hill, okay?
Thanks. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me on.
All right. Thank you very much.
Okay,
appreciate it.
Bye.
Bye. Guys, all right, that was Johnny Wunder. Awesome. I could talk club fitting all day, not because of what's the right shaft or anything like that. I just like to hear things like spin is king, right? And we got to get it. Bash, what did you learn there? Anything good? You're on mute.
I'm always on mute. I was just taking it all in. I think every time that I hear like a coach or someone that we have on here who's in the know talk about you only have to hit it one way.
Yes.
Like you don't have to hit it both ways. And I see all these guys that I play with like try to hit it both ways and through the 9 windows of like It's ridiculous.
It's crazy, isn't it? I don't know why we think that. I got to cut this in there. I got to draw it. You can't hit it one way.
Well, yeah, it's the same. Like in baseball, everyone grows up trying to switch hit. I'm like, you can't even hit right-handed. Like, why are you trying to hit left-handed too? Come on.
Let's go to some questions. What do you think?
Yeah, we're a little light on the questions today.
I've got tons of questions from Instagram.
Okay.
So let me start there. Okay.
Okay.
So Brandon can you explain the importance of self-talk during pre-shot and post-shot routines? Self-talk is a reflection of belief. Okay, so if you read the Mindside Manifesto, self-talk is a reflection of what we believe in ourselves. So when we use self-talk before a shot, what we're doing is we're building. Think about it like a meter that's building inside you before you execute. You got this. Is what we're going to do. It's very clear of intention, purpose, focus, working ourselves into it. And in the post-shot, I'm fine if somebody's like, dumbass. But then I want them to turn the channel and move forward. So post-talk self-talk, post-shot self-talk is critical about what was the issue there, what do we do to grow, and that's kind of the process, right? So running the scripts in our head. Self-belief is always a reflection of what we believe in ourselves. So if you have stinking thinking, if you're an ass to yourself, more than likely your belief is low. So we need to reinvest that. What about this question? I get this one a lot. What are some good failure drills from golf? Because we talk about failure drills. The whole goal of a failure drill, anything in practice needs to be about 15% failure rate. Okay. So a failure drill is a drill that you don't walk away always feeling like, man, I'm the greatest player in the world. It's okay to get your shins kicked in on occasion and to look at it and say, you know what? I had to compete, but there was no guarantee of an outcome. That's what a failure drill is. A failure drill would be something like a putting drill that it takes a surge of performance to complete. It may be a shooting drill in basketball. It may be something like that where it's just harder for you to do what it takes. Okay? That's a failure drill. Let me take one more from Instagram.
Should we may need to bring some examples next time for failure drills.
Yeah, I'm thinking that. How to deal with negativity while not practicing because of an injury. When you're injured, it sucks. Negativity is going to be high. So you can't focus on the things in front of you. As a former injured athlete, you can't be sitting there worrying about all the things that are out there that you're missing. What you have to do is focus on what you can do. And what you can do is your rehab, your focus, and wait your turn. And when you get back, you don't need to focus on how fast you can get it back. What you need to do is focus on doing your job, and your job is playing to the best that you can right now. What questions we got on our tank over here?
It's from Charles on YouTube. How to stop feeling the need to prove to yourself the hard work is paying off and not wasted effort?
Okay, so this is a great question. People, I want you to understand that hard work is X, performance is Y. They're not always linked. But anybody in their right mind would do the hard work and think, I've got to see the results at some point. Okay? If you continually plant crops that don't grow and produce their veggies and their fruits, you would ask yourself, why are you doing it? The question is what's the right time frame? It takes time to change motor patterns. It takes time to trust motor patterns, and it takes time to trust motor patterns under pressure. So look for small elements along the way. The hard work is an investment, but I don't know about you, but if I'm eating right every day and not losing weight, I get frustrated. So we have to understand the nuances that are in there to make those small tweaks.
Let's go to Tom, north of the border on YouTube. How much of this is a question for Brad, but
yeah, I know this one though.
Guys, instruction style based on technique versus athleticism of the player.
So Brad and I have talked a long time about this, and we do about 30% technique and then 70% performance or athleticism. And there are times that he's working with Brad or Mac or Sam or somebody like that, and they're really working and dialing on some technique so that it can transfer to performance and competitiveness. So Brad is really good about utility, not perfection. And that's why it's critical.
Teresa on YouTube, there's more of an emphasis now for parents and players to chase rankings, performance stars, getting into the right tournaments, hiring college consultants to get kids into D1, D2, D3 golf. What do you think is the best use of resources when competing during the summer months? Time, money, etc.
Okay, great question. And I hear a pressure a ton. A lot of parents struggle with this. Number one thing to do is get them experience in playing in the right tournaments so they learn to win and then keep moving up levels. Here's the deal. College recruiters, college coaches will find you. And all you have to do is get to a place that grows you. You may think you want to go to a Power 5, but if you sit on the bench for 3 years, are you going to get better? Personally, I did. Okay, I did because that was part of my maturation and development plan. But the important thing for a player is to put themselves in scenarios where they can play, learn to win, dominate that level, and move up. So the resources would be playing as many tournaments as you possibly can, the good, the bad, and the ugly in those. Let's do one more because I gotta go eat dinner.
Mm-hmm.
You do.
That's what we got from. That's what we got from.
That's our questions for tonight. Well, make sure you guys follow me on Instagram tomorrow. I'll be live talking about my experience out at the Pro-Am, and I'm going to send it. So I appreciate it. Next one is May 22nd, Monday night. I really hope this guest comes through. Oh, I'm hoping. So if not, we are going to be dialing in. We will bring in failure drills and how does that impact your mental health, but also your mental performance. But next time, some mental health, some importance. Keep sharing the message, guys. Let's keep growing Mental Game Live to be the biggest, baddest place out there, and we will continue to grow with everything we got. Until then, I'll see you next time.